Hello Roger. Well, it's been a very pleasant day that we've had together. We had a nice game yesterday and it's always nice to see you. You know, you're always welcome when you're coming this way, and I don't know what you're doing down in Devon, but I'm sure that you're going to make somebody laugh down there. It's nice of you to take a tape, because I know that you can perhaps help me in getting rid of a few. It's, you know, especially to the billiard players. But anyway, I've only got a few seconds to talk to you, so it's nice seeing you, and when you get home, give your lovely wife Lee a kiss for me, and perhaps we'll see you in the near future. I hope so anyway. We'll get up there sometime, maybe in the spring. So all the best for now, Rog. Good hunting.
Thank you.
Been a great pleasure for me to be with Jack here in his home to assist in making this videotape. Being a very keen but average billiard player myself, it has been a most helpful and enlightening experience to see Jack demonstrating the finer aspects of the game. The 2 points which have left the greatest impression upon me are the tight rein maintained on the object ball in the red ball play, and particularly the control over the floating white in the top of the table play. For some viewers who may know Jack Karnehm only as a BBC TV commentator, I must mention that he was both an amateur and professional champion. I am confident that when you've watched this video, you will agree with me that Jack is the person best qualified to make this tape. Considering the short time in which this tape has been completed, no rehearsals have been possible. All the material which we have recorded is part of Jack's regular practice routine. One could go on and on about billiards, owing to the fascination and complexity of the game, but we have done our best to emphasize the basic principles of quality play. I hope that you derive as much pleasure from watching this video as I have from helping to make it. For me, this is Billiards, a Master Class with Jack Karnehm.
Well, today is the 24th of September 1993, and I've had a very hectic and pleasurable week putting together quite a lot of material to complete this tape. Now, I must say it's been very pleasurable, and one might ask, well, how did it come about? But I've done this. Well, it was due to a very good friend of mine, who I'm sure is fairly well known in the amateur game at least, and that is Roger Davis. And he knows me well, he knows quite a bit about my life and my play, and he suggested it. So I had a good think, and it did occur to me that, well, I have been playing this game now actively as a young lad amongst very great players for 70 years. And that really is quite a long time. And of course, I've had the privilege of being taught by the great Tom Newman, who was the champion before Joe Davis, and was indeed a pupil of the great Roberts, who was one of the very early professionals, who was a very great player indeed. So you see, I've had quite a lot of experience. It would be hard to mention a player outside of Roberts that I haven't had some dealings with as a young man and as a very young lad. So I've been very fortunate and very honoured indeed. You might say, well, why have I done it? Well, it's been done purely for my pleasure and my personal feelings about the game. I've always been very much a player who's almost, well, I've been dedicated to the game, and I still feel very active. I still have, I'm quite sure, quite a few 500 breaks left in me yet. During this, one of the problems we had during this putting together of the tape, in our eagerness in the first instance, it was a question of, well, we must knock in some really nice breaks. Well, we did. In that past period of time, I've knocked in a 600 and something and a 400. But then when we've got to the end of the collection of material, which goes right through the billiard game, because after all, this is a tape for billiard players. And it did occur to me that through all my experience and through all my probing through the memorabilia of the game and having known the players, there has never ever been made by one of them a real instructional tape. Mind you, they didn't have the advantages that we have today, but nevertheless they made films, and they didn't really go into it. In fact, to be quite truthful, it really was a bit of a closed shop, and they were great artists of mystery. And of course that all ended, well, round about the 60s when the game opened up, but that's another story. So, the material in the tape, it takes in the instruction of how to play the game through the red balls, method of play up to top of the table. And unfortunately, we realised when we got to the end that all these big breaks weren't really fitted to a video of this nature. So I'm sorry to say we've had to sacrifice that side of it and concentrate on breaks, which I felt would help players who, whilst being very good players, and I'm talking about 100 break players, and there's quite a few of them, more than ever now I think, who haven't really got that something extra that takes them to hit the high spots, whether it be in terms of victories or for their own personal pleasure of making bigger breaks than they already make. And I know too well that you can struggle all your life, and if you don't know or aren't made aware of some of the things that can be done, you never find them out. And I can tell you, Joe and Tom, they used to say to me as a young man, if you don't see it, that is the shot that's on, it's because you don't know it. And if you don't know it, you don't play it. It's as simple as that. So that is what we've tried to do. So we've made breaks, anything up to 200, where we hope there will be moves that we see and we talk about that can help the advanced player and maybe continue his 100 breaks into whatever he's got the energy and the initiative to go for. So it really is as simple as that. Now, the other important thing I want to say is that it's my intention that I would like the billiard players to see this. So therefore, you won't be able, because this is a personal thing of mine, it will not be a commercial tape, and you won't be able to go into any shop or a retailer's in that video business and buy the tape. I'm afraid you will have to buy it through me, and that's all there is to it. Obviously, that way control can be kept of the tape and the price, etc., etc. So I hope you see it, and for those who do, I hope you will enjoy it and try and pick out pieces where, well, maybe you've learned something and it will add to your break. You know, you can play top of the table, which of course has to be the part of the game where the mysteries lie, really. The red ball game, it's an extremely accurate game. It's a necessary, essential part of being a very good player, and you must never forsake the red ball, believe me. I won't talk about it now because it's all in the tape. So for those who see it, I hope they enjoy it. So, good viewing, the best of luck, and keep playing billiards. Well, there you are, the shot that you've just seen with the two balls on the Baulk line is in fact the half ball aim, which is a quarter ball contact. Now, the theory is that of course you aim the cue through the centre of the white and pointing the cue at the very edge of the red, and that will achieve the contact that you see in that shot of the half ball aim. Now what I'd like to do is show you the various shots on the table in practice where you can practice this half ball play in red ball play, which is really the essence of being a good cueman and learning how to deliver the cue, because the balls tell you exactly whether you're striking the ball nicely. For instance, if you strike too low, you will tend to get a false angle. You'll square the angle, almost a stun effect. And whereas if you just strike a nice sweet strike centre ball, or marginally above centre, you get the nice flowing action and the forward rotation of the ball, and you get the real clean angle. And this is all about cueing nicely, aiming half ball. So if I can just break this up and show you where these angles are. Well, here's the half ball aim from the centre pocket. There's the line through the centre of the cue ball, aiming the cue at the edge of the red. And there you see the ball coming nicely down the spots, which will leave you either a long loser, and if it continued further, if you desired so, it will bring you down for a middle pocket in off. Now the other shot for the half ball is on the spot again, and here on the knuckle there, same aim exactly as the centre pocket there, and it takes you down for the middle pocket, and then you proceed, if you can, to make as many off the middle bag as you can. And so there you have a middle pocket in off the spot, you have the corner pocket off the spot, and they are the basic in-off angles.
Well, now we've had quite a little bit of explanation on the red ball there. Now this is the ultimate of all your practice, really. It's a question of getting down and keeping that red as straight as possible. Nice contact, bringing the red back towards the pocket, and just see how straight you can keep the red. And here's another way of helping yourself to keep that red nice and straight. Put the two target balls on the cushion and play to hit the center between the two. And as you become more proficient, you can narrow the gap. And you'll be surprised how having a target there will help you. And always make sure that you hit through the ball, looking at the object ball when you let go. Well, now, on the tape somewhere, I've played 15 losing hazards off the red into the centre pocket, purely to illustrate the accuracy of striking the red and positioning the white ball, of course. And we can talk about that in a moment or two, but I really want to spend a few minutes on how to tackle the losing hazard game. I mean, I've seen some of the amateur boys playing, and they play the in-offs well, they cue well, but they're a little bit reckless in their attitudes, and they get into trouble before they should. So to start with, we'll start by playing the long loser, which can always be missed. You must remember that. And before we get involved, let me say this, that with the new ball that came in, it may not be new to the younger men, but to me it was a new ball brought in about 20 years ago, of which I wrote strongish words about at the time, because it was a complete change and they play quite differently to the old Crystal 8 ball. Well, now, these balls, whilst they're beautifully made and perfectly symmetrical and so on, they conform to the limits of about 3 thou in size. There's nothing wrong, but they do tend slightly to vary, and they tend to fly if you hit them a little bit too hard. They tend to fly, and you don't get the reaction of the nap when the long loser will swerve on the nap and come back onto line. They will tend to get to the peak of the swerve, the cue ball, and instead of coming back swinging nicely back on line, it will tend to go carry on, as it were, and make a bigger arc, thus missing the pocket. Now, to combat that, a lot of players play more gently to leave the red in the area of the pyramid spot. Now, there's nothing wrong in that. In fact, it's quite a good policy. But the only thing is, of course, you don't always want to leave the ball in that area. You might want to fetch it round deliberately so that you can do something else and create a position that you've worked hard for. So you have to find a way of combating. Now, it is very difficult, in my opinion, to, if, for instance, you're playing on a table and you, for whatever reason, whether it's cloth or balls, you find that the balls are throwing wide, and you find it very difficult to judge what you normally play. Well, now, if you spot, shall we say, a little wider or a little narrower, it tends to be quite difficult, and you lose a touch of confidence. So what I suggest is that if you find the balls are swinging and not really coming back nicely, you want to play marginally, and when I say marginally, I mean very marginally, narrower. In other words, if you set correctly for the half ball, move the ball, shall we say, 1/4 of an inch, the cue ball, 1/4 of an inch into a slightly narrower angle, and tend to take a breath of check side into the top pocket. And then you will find that for me anyway, you find that the adjustment is made. And if you practice a few, you'll find it's very, very helpful. And I might add, a lot of players tend to play with check side on long losers because they fear this, but they don't really know why they do it. But that is the reason. It works on the subconscious in the mind and makes you do these things. Now, if you understand that, you can really build your confidence playing the long losers. And of course, when you play the long loser, for instance, if the balls are spotted, which again, without going into details, is a bad rule of billiards. It's too easy to have touching balls and then spot them and get a perfect position, but that's another story. But if the balls are spotted, the object is to get the white ball, the white object ball, to come back and come across the red there. Not the last thing you want is to kiss that red because you don't know where they're going. So when you play your long loser, instead of setting for a perfect half ball, that you can discover, you can measure, you can work out however way you want. Take the ball, as I said, a fraction narrower, and with just a breath of check side, and you'll find it will tend to bring the ball across there. And if I can just illustrate this, I'll show you what I mean. Now if I place this for the half ball, and I'll try and play this a perfect half ball, now I came very, very close to the red, too close for comfort. Now, if you watch again, I'll spot exactly the same. There, that's exactly where I spotted before. Now I'm going to come in from there to there. And very often you see a player doing this and just touching the ball, and it's the recognition. So now I've gone a fraction, just a fraction narrower, and I'm taking that ball with a hint of check side. There. Now, as you see, I've missed the red by that much. And there's no fear, plus the fact that because I've got nicely into the white, I've brought it down, now I've got total command where I can push that white and do whatever I like. And you know, that is very, very important. So that is something for you to work on anyway. Well now, of course that applies, the same applies to the upper pocket, whichever pocket you prefer to play in, of course. So it's the same both sides, which covers the long loser. Now, obviously, when you're playing the open game, you might be playing one or two off the white and incorporating the red ball, playing a bit of red ball play. Very often you come short, whether you're playing around the angles or whatever, and the object ball will land, whether it's red or white, it doesn't make any difference. It'll land in about that position, somewhere between the middle spot and the pink spot, and about 12 or 14 inches from the center spot. Now, when that happens, there's a great danger, and you're probably aware of this, of getting the 4 shot in the case of the white and the 6 shot with the red, but in either case it disrupts your flow. You've got a foreign shot to play, which of course you want to avoid. Now the thing is, this shot looks ridiculous when you get down to play it, but if you have the courage and the perseverance to practice it, you'll find it's no harder than any other ordinary in-off, and it's this. Now you see the white ball or the red have come round beautifully for the middle pocket, and what a lovely feeling when you think well, here we are again, lovely in middle pocket in-off, and you just keep driving, you know, and that is the feeling. It gives you confidence, and it's that odd shot when you do it right that gives you the spur to keep going, and that is so important. Well, now we've spoken about the ball, object ball, being between the pyramid spot and the center spot. Well now, again, if you're playing, in this case particularly, red ball play, and so often this will happen to you, the red will come down, and if it comes to there, perfect. You've got a middle pocket in-off in either middle pocket. So you're laughing. But strange tables, slow, fast, whatever, you find that suddenly a little bit of tension creeps in and you come back a bit short. And you've then got the dreaded, and I mean dreaded, I think all players hate it, is the long loser, where this distance here from the cue ball to the object ball is shorter than the distance it has to travel from the object ball to the pocket. So therefore, there is a certain judgment required where you've suddenly got a different ratio between cue ball and object ball and pocket. Now, when you've been in flow and you're cueing nicely, you're pushing through, you suddenly get landed with this one, and because you're feeling good, you're feeling confident, you get down, you set up the angle correctly, and you swing nicely through the shot, imagining that the red is going to come nicely round here somewhere and land in the middle of the table, and lo and behold, you wriggle in the jaw, the ball has swung wide out here, and instead of coming nicely back to the pocket, it catches there, because the swing has been lengthened, because you've played at a nice firm pace. So the motto is, unless you're very, very good at it and you're totally competent, is to play it gently. In other words, allow the nap to work. So when you get down and play this shot, and there's the spot, instead of playing the shot and giving it a whack to fetch it round, play it nice and sweet and play it gently, and there you've got a lovely in-off into the corner pocket. Now you'll find once a little bit of practice of that, and you'll begin to feel, because you're playing gently, there isn't the figure in your action where you tend to get slight movement off the line of the cue and so on. You're able to play, in other words, the technique that you possess to greater perfection, and you'll find that is the best way to play that until the time comes when maybe you're that good that you can swing through. But you know, the reason we're going into this is that it's these balls, which I said, we're not complaining about the balls in as much as there's anything wrong with them. It's just that they're different. And I don't want to get embroiled in discussion about the balls, but the fact is that these balls are lighter than the old ball used to be. And it's something like 1/4 of an ounce, which is considerable. And in my view, they spring and they do fly. And as a consequence, you have to play more gently with greater care. Now, some people will say, well, you know, it's made the game harder. For billiard players, it has. And for snooker players, what it has done, because they have become aware of the dangers of using side, where because the ball is lighter and it flies, the snooker players have become far more expert at striking that ball in the centre. And as I've said so many times, the most difficult thing to do is to hit that ball in the centre. And why? Because there is only one. Anywhere else is wrong in terms of perfection. So you see, the snooker players have learned to strike the ball in the centre, and as a consequence the potting has improved. There's no question about that. But for the billiard player, side is absolutely essential if you're going to be a quality player. So you have to learn how much you as an individual push that ball offline when you play, and see the curvature take place to come back on the line. And whereas I may have less swing or more swing than another player, at least I've learned how much I move the ball. And these are the sort of things that grow on you if you understand what you're trying to do. For instance, if you're playing with strong running side, you might find if you're playing a strong running side up the table, and it's right hand side for instance, you hit the ball, a nice firm shot, it pushes slightly to the left, and if you stay still on the shot and you watch exactly the ball travelling to the object, you will see the very slight push off and it comes back on the line, gets to the object, and then does whatever you want it to do. Now, if you misjudge the amount of side or push a little too hard, you snatch a little or whatever, all that has an effect on the line of aim. But if you were able to draw the line of aim from A to B in a dead straight line, which the snooker players tend to do, you would find that it's easier to play that way, but you have to be very good at hitting the ball in the centre. Now at billiards, you have to use side very often because the shot is non without side. So you have to learn your ability to move the cue ball before it gets onto the line. So the line of aim, whilst it doesn't change if it's purely straight, you have to allow for that little bit of curve which comes and fetches that ball back to where it would go along the straight line. I hope I make that clear, but it is, I know it sounds all hypothetical, theoretical and all the rest of it, but if you understand what you are doing and what happens on the table, when you practice you can put it right. And I think I've demonstrated in one or two places where you can actually do that. So try it, see what happens, and I wish you success. I've seen this so many times where the player will have the red nicely on, and because he's aware that the angle is from the knuckle, he will play the pot red through to the knuckle of the pocket, and then he ends up where he's tucked up in the middle pocket area and cueing isn't quite so free. So the important thing is to play this shot and give yourself an angle where when you pop that red, you run up on the line so that you can now get your hand on the table and play the shot, and you're virtually on the line. You can even come up as far as here if you're feeling good and confident with control of the cue. And there, that becomes a very comfortable shot. So there you are. And the importance of this, of course, is that when you can cue nicely, you can maintain control. And the important thing is, as I've said so many times before, the balls will tell you when you're seeing and playing well. For instance, if I take that a perfect half ball, the red will come off the top cushion and run down over the spots. If I'm too thin, it will tend to come down this side of the table on the spots. If I'm too thick, it'll come over that side. Now the point is, either side, as long as you've got the in-off and scored, either side you can still utilise the position, but the message to you as a player is that when you're striking them well, you're putting that ball where you want it. If you don't want it just down there, but just down there, that is the essence of really good play. And this is exactly what I mean. Now, because I'm nicely on the line here, for example, or let's make it not too easy, I'm nicely on the line there. If I play that and try and play perfect half ball, and I hit it too thick, I come down that side of the table, and whilst I can carry on and score, inwardly there is a little tinge of annoyance because I know I hadn't struck it nicely. So let's play that one again. And this time it's another day and you're feeling a little better and you think, well, nice half ball there, and you put yourself to the test and you get the ball beautifully right over the spot. So there's the spot there. Now I've come down there, I'm a little bit short of pace, but that doesn't matter. You're feeling good, you've hit it beautifully, you play a long loser, you fetch it round, you start again. Now the other shot is if you catch it too thin, you're either going to miss it or you're just going to scrape in the pocket. And the ball, the object ball, will tell you exactly what you've done wrong. Now you see I'm too thin and I've come down this side of the spots. As I say, it's okay. But, you know, billiard players, indeed snooker players, they all want to be absolutely perfect. And this is the difference, perhaps, between a champion, a very consistent player, because he does really get motoring. He does exactly what's in his mind, and that is what builds the confidence. And once you begin to hit the ball like that, you get your total confidence, the adrenaline flows, and you can stand on your tiptoes and play. It's one of these strange things about sport. So there you are. There's a few hints there. Now the other thing that I would mention, perhaps that perhaps you might not be aware of, when you're playing your red ball, and it isn't always easy where you've got nice angles and half balls sort of thing, but if you take a general rule that if you place a couple of cues on the table in that fashion, and then a couple of imaginary lines from the pyramid spot each way, you've got virtually what is the hull of a boat. Now if the red ball is anywhere in that area there, up here, particularly up here, around this area, you can go in off from hand. So when you're playing, and if you're playing your middle pocket losers, try and keep within this area. Now of course you can come down here, and I think as you improve and strike the ball well, you won't be too worried. In fact, you'll try and play up and down this line here, and you may come inside it because of that little discrepancy in contact on the object ball when you feel you've played a loose one. But of course, if you do that, you then begin to get involved with run-throughs, which become three-quarter ball run-throughs as opposed to thickish half ball. And they are more difficult because they take excellent cueing, and the balls will tend to kick and spring if you're a little bit out in your judgment or your cueing, whatever. So the safety area is within the hull of that boat. So there we are. There's a few hints on red ball play, and the more you play it, like all aspects of the game, you'll find that the more you will improve your cueing. And I would suggest that if snooker players were to use this in the routine, just as part of their training, I think not only they might find they enjoy billiards, but the reason is that it would sweeten up their cueing, and they might find their potting improving.
Well, Jack, so many of these wonderful shots you've played here on this video require such a lot of side and screw. When I'm putting that much on, I have to say, I find it very difficult to get the desired effect. I get the ball push off a lot and so on. But this little routine of practice that you're going to show us now is one that you're recommending to try and help that, aren't you?
Yes, well, you see, when you say you find them difficult, of course they are very difficult shots. But you can only play this game as well as you can cue. And in fact, a lot of people might say, well, of course you don't need these shots. But if you are an enthusiast and you want enjoyment out of the game,
Yeah, yes.
I mean, it gives tremendous enjoyment. But if you become successful at them, you have to learn to cue properly. You have to be able to deliver on the line of aim. And let me tell you, one of the biggest problems, which is so natural that we all do, but let us say for simplicity, that the champions do it far less than the majority of players, because they are champions. And that is that some will do it wittingly and others will do it unwittingly. And that is that you, instead of playing the result of the shot, you get more of your concentration on playing the line of aim. You know, you have to be looking at all shots, with very few exceptions. You have to be looking at the object ball on the moment of firing.
And staying on it,
And staying, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And push the cue through on the line of aim. Now, if you find that you're missing shots when you know perfectly well, or feel so perfectly correct in your aiming and suddenly you think, how the devil did I miss that? It is because your eyes have probably come off the object ball in anticipation of the shot.
Yes, of the shot,
Now, if they come off after you've struck that and you see your ball go in the pocket or the object ball go in the pocket, that isn't so bad. But what you have to do, and this is where this routine comes in, and I learned this as a kid. I mean, this is one of the things that Tom, and for those younger people who, wouldn't know Tom Newman was the wonderful player who was a champion before Joe Davis, and a very wonderful champion. And his idea was that you practiced the delivery of the cue. And this routine is one that can allow you, regardless of missing and the misses that you make, you can play the shot and practice at looking at that ball, checking on your cue ball where you're going to strike it. Always address the cue ball where you mean to strike it.
Yeah.
Push it through on the line of aim. And if you do that one or two things in one operation and stay looking, you will get the desired result. Now, if you sort of brainwash that into yourself, you begin to realise that you can divide your concentration from the thought of playing the shot as to making sure of the correct delivery.
Yes.
You know, you're a good golfer. If people don't know it, I'll tell them you are. You're a cracking golfer. Now, when you're driving off the tee, 400 yards to the pin, and you can't see the tee, but you detect there's a tree on the way or a bush. Yeah, the pin.
Yeah.
You see a bush somewhere 150 yards ahead, you take aim on that, you pick a line of aim and you give it a whack. Now, your problems start as a good golfer when you can see the hole. Because now you're playing to hit this ball and you want to, no sooner you hit it, you want to look to see if it's going in.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a golfer, but I'll bet £1,000,000 that if I played, as I struck, my head would be coming up, see, have I got it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas the good golfer, he hits that, and his head doesn't move, and then he looks up.
Correct.
Now,
That's correct.
and that's exactly what you've got to do here. But one must bear in mind that without making comparisons of the two games, this game there is no margin of error. And there's a mental attitude in golf where, and don't misunderstand what I'm saying here,
You can have the wind, you can have trees, you can have leaves, all sorts of weather conditions, but generally speaking, on a lovely billiard table, it's down to you.
Yes,
it's your technique.
No excuses.
That's right.
No.
So look, if I try and play this little routine.
Right, let's see the routine.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Now, just for simplicity purposes, I'm going to play in off the red in there. There's a little screw shot with a little bit of right hand side. Then I'm going to play one from there, and then I'm going to play one from there, and then finally I will play a complete screw back into that pocket. Now, the point is that when you're playing this, the one thing you cannot teach anybody is how to feel. You know, feeling, you have to learn that, and this will help you to feel the strength and so on, and concentrate entirely on pushing the cue through on the line of A. Make sure you don't play the shot and do that. You play the shot there and concentrate on that fact. So here we go. Let's try the first one. A little bit of right hand side, firm bridge hand. Now look, my cue is forward. I've gone through the shot to there and a lovely in off. Now all I did, and this is the mental approach, I didn't play to go in off mentally. I played, in practice this is, I played to deliver the cue on the line of A. Now we go a little bit deeper. So now I've got to be more thorough in my selection of striking the cue ball, so I make sure I'm low enough, I'm looking at where I'm striking the cue ball, I go to the object ball and push my cue through there. So now I come to the third one, which is a little steeper still, and I do exactly the same, and of course because it's now a deeper screw, I've got to take the red a little thicker with right hand side, and by taking it thicker I'm getting more resistance off that ball to fetch it back at a much sharper angle into the pocket. There we are. Now, if you play that and watch your cue all the way, eventually you can come round, and now the people who say they can't screw a ball can put, having completed this, and you might play this for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and if any time you have available for practicing, have a 5 minutes at it. And eventually you play exactly the same shot from there. And there we are. You've screwed back without all this business of chipping the ball and trying to dip into the ball. The important factor is that you must address the cue ball where you mean to strike it. You don't play with this sort of action there where you dip into the ball. Cue action is not only being truly parallel to the bed of the table as much as possible and there, it also means eliminating that way as well. If you're going to strike there, do so and aim there. Don't play there and do that. That is one of the problems, believe it or not. Well, there you are. Well, here's a shot now, playing with the nap from the baulk end of the table, 5 inches between the white ball and the red ball, and developing the power in the shot with such a short run through. There we are, nicely in the top pocket. So now a run through down the table, this time with strong left hand side, allowing the side to work on the nap. And you see it hugs the cushion for the last 5 feet into the pocket. That's a beauty. Well, now here's the shot to remember. Put this one in your locker. Lots of top, not too much left hand side, but powerful cueing with subtlety. Just watch this. Thickish half ball contact. How about that? Now here you want to learn to be able to control the screw power that one possesses. So with this shot, plenty of left hand side, screw the length of the table, and don't dig too deep, otherwise you lose the pace of the shot, and let the spin work on the nap. Well, just a few words on cueing. You know, it's all very well talking about all the refinements of the game and the things you can do playing red ball, top of the table, or any shot that you play for that matter. But in the end, however you play, it comes down to good cueing in the end. Good sighting, good cueing, coordination, all the things that we all know about, rhythm, wonderful timing and so on. But it is no good just listening to what a lot of people say about cueing by just getting down and, if you like, playing across the baulk line or hitting the ball up and down the table to see if it goes straight. That doesn't prove anything about cueing, because cueing is allied so closely to your own character, to your discipline of technique, to be able to remain truly still, emotionally, physically, in every aspect when you deliver the cue on the line that you have selected. Now, if you can do that part, which is terribly difficult, especially under pressure, well then you are really achieving something, because then you have the choice, if you're confident in yourself that you have selected the correct line of aim, and you're confident in your own discipline of technique, you get the answer. You've either moved on the stroke if you've played it badly, or your line of aim was a little bit awry somewhere. Now, once you narrow it down to those two things, self-belief in what you're doing is reduced, and you eliminate so many of the facets which, if you take them separately, it is so extremely difficult to get your mind settled. So first of all, you've got to tell yourself, can you really point the cue where you're looking? Because if you can, you're halfway there. Now, obviously, when you're trying to cue correctly, it's, as I say, it's no good just hitting the ball up and down the table. That will tell you roughly that you're sort of sending the ball in the general direction. But you have to apply this, as I said, to the pressure of the moment. You have to be able to have your eyes looking at the object ball at that very precise millionth of a second when you let the cue go through the shot. All these things are so important, and so therefore if you're testing your cue action, you've got to have something that will tell you whether you were correct or not. Now if you hit the ball up and down the table, you just tell yourself whether you've hit it correctly or not. It's no good saying, well, it came back to my tip, shall we say, in this fashion, because quite frankly, that isn't very difficult at all. But if we now revert to a billiard shot, and we put this cue ball, this object ball rather, and this is quite precise, that is 26 inches from the side cushion, that red, and 16 inches from the side cushion to the centre of that pocket. Now, if I place the cue ball in a direct line with that red there, now I come to the D and I place the cue ball on the brown spot. Now, that gives you a perfect in-off, and these are the measurements I've indicated, give you a perfect in-off into that pocket, centre pocket, and sending the red perfectly straight up the table to come back in terms of perfection. And remember, we always talk in terms of perfection. Not many of us achieve it, if anybody does, but the better players get longer glimpses, put it that way. So now, any reasonably good billiard player can look at that and say, yes, I can get in off that, but the indication is that it's a fraction thick in striking. Well, that is good. This is where the errors creep into the average billiard player, because he sets the ball at what is, really speaking, a half-ball shot. Now, once you hit a half-ball shot, you're beginning to cut slightly across the ball, because the shot that you're playing tends to take you that way, into that pocket. So now you can test your cueing. Now, I'm going to make the obvious mistake, but I'm going to get the in-off, I can assure you. Now, let's say we're playing a break, you've nicely got a nice break going, whatever it is, and you think, oh lovely, a nice in-off, so you want to make sure of the in-off. So there's the in-off, and it comes back not bad at all. I'm a little bit fortunate. Had it stopped 2 inches shorter, I'd have been screwing into the middle pocket. Right, now, whilst you may be happy that you've scored, that isn't what good billiards is about. You have got to know where you're sending that red ball, and only that ball will tell you. You can't tell yourself. That ball will tell you how you struck it. So now, if I take that ball correctly, that red ball correctly, I should take that white ball virtually full in the face or thereabouts to fetch, in terms of perfection, this red ball back onto that spot. Now, of course, you practice this. You're not going to do this very often. But just try it, and what it will do, it will give you the opportunity of, instead of playing the actual shot into that pocket, you can concentrate by taking the line of aim to the red marginally thicker, very slightly thicker than half ball, and you will find that red will go straight, and once you've got it once or twice, don't worry about how far it comes back. Just begin to recognise the amount of red that you're striking. In other words, you're beginning to recognise the line of aim from the red through from the white through to the red. Now once you begin to see that, you can then get down and pay more concentration to your cue and look through your cue at the red. And when you're ready, go to the red and push through. Now, I've done that talking. There's the red, 16 inches, there's the spot, 16 inches, I'm perfectly in line, and I'm 4 inches to the side. There we are. Now there is the amount of error. Now, bearing in mind, I'm in perfect position. I'm not quite perfect, but I'm in pretty good position to continue scoring with control and being in charge. So now, let's play it again. And the more you play it, so you will become more familiar with the line of aim, and gradually you will begin to find that pace, the judgment of pace becomes easier because you're playing a constant line and the mind and the body register. Now then, there's the ball, there's the spot, look. I've virtually crossed over the spot and there it is. Now then, let's try another one. And what I'm trying to impress on anybody I speak to about this is that once you understand this and you begin to play it and practice it and begin to apply it to your game, you tend, if you're a reasonably good player, you can tend to stop being quite so concerned about this ball going into that pocket, because having applied your concentration of the straight line pushing through and leaving it there when you've played the shot and no movement at all, you will find that you become so confident because that automatically goes in and that red comes back and pats you on the back and says, well done, I'm here again. And if you can imagine, I'm sure, I know so many good amateur players who have no ambition to be professional, but they love to be a better billiard player. If they would concentrate on this one shot in either pocket, and they had a little period of time every time they get the opportunity, 20 minutes practice, and begin to see exactly what is happening, they will then begin to fit this into their game, and suddenly they get the red there. And they're very unhappy if they don't get 4 or 5 in off the reds. Now never mind about the people who say red ball, this, that and the other. They're the people who can't really play it, haven't got the patience or maybe the ability. And that isn't to say they can't be good billiard players, and they might be very good at top of the table. But this is the stepping stone to quality billiards. Well, I'm sure that all billiard players have seen this shot played with one ball, and it's a delightful shot to play. It gives you a great deal of satisfaction. But here's one just to test your knowledge and your ability, and if you should ever be in this unfortunate position, it's still on. Now there are 2 balls there, they're touching balls in the run-through position. And of course, therefore, you've got double the weight on the balls when you hit them. So it means that you've got to increase everything in terms of top on the ball, plenty of side, and what happens, the weight forces the cue ball backwards, and then the top that you put on, which is excessive, stops it and pushes it back on the line, and it runs through and goes in off. It's quite an interesting shot. You'll learn from it. the 2 or 3 run-throughs that I played there, I have found very good practice indeed, for the simple reason that the only concern you have with this particular shot that is set up is that you have to have the correct line of aim, because you're playing with side. And if you're the slightest bit out, you will get a foreign result, and if you practice it, you'll soon discover what you've done wrong. You either put too much side on, you perhaps struck the ball too low, you haven't followed through, you're not sighting right through your cue, which you're able to do all these things with this shot without being concerned about the pocket that you're trying to get into. And that gives you the opportunity to concentrate on your cue action, your delivery of cue, and making sure above all that you're hitting the red ball with the cue ball and you actually see them collide. Now that is one of the most important things of all, that you are looking at the object ball on the moment of impact, and that applies to all shots you play. So in one sense, whilst this can be quite an entertaining shot to practice, it will begin to tell you everything that you aren't doing that you ought to do. So use it as a practice shot. I have played this for hours and hours, on and off, and once you begin to see the line and you begin to cue nicely, you find that that shot becomes not anything like as difficult as people imagine it to be. It's just getting the confidence to push your cue through on the line and totally ignore the pocket that you're playing to. And the reason I played with the 2 balls there, and also from way down here and run through, is exactly the same shot, except that it demands a little higher striking, because on impact you're hitting a far greater weight than the existing cue ball. You're hitting double the weight. So on impact it tends to throw this ball back maybe an inch, but the top keeps it from coming too far and gives it the impetus to go forward with the side to complete the shot as played in this case here. So there you are. That is an excellent routine to practice. Well, now the intention here is to see if I can put some points together, and rather than attack the top as though there was nothing else in the world, I want to try and move the balls around and maybe explain some of the recovery shots of going away and coming to the top. It's not easy, but let's see how it goes. Well, at least I've got a bounce off the top cushion with the red, and I'm left in a pretty good drop cannon position there. So obviously the hope here is to drop to the top of the table and then take a few points and go away if there's any danger, rather than trying intricate shots to stay there. And really, you couldn't ask for more than that, could you? If every drop cannon I played went like that, I'd be delighted. And that's left me a perfect position there to come under the white. And you note there I played that with right hand side to clip the white back towards the spot. And because I was playing over the ball there, I was quite happy to let the cue ball run freely and not play too tight it for position. Just a fraction thin on the white there. Could have done with another roll of the ball there towards the spot, but no danger. I've had to screw back to the cushion there to just improve the angle for the following canon here. Now there I intended to try and avoid the kiss that I had on the white, to bring it up to the spot. So I've lost my rhythm, so I've decided to go away and come back again. Had the red have gone another 6 inches there, I would probably have potted the red and come up, but I was able to play the drop. And that's a good shot, because I've now put myself in a position where I can play a recovery shot, clipping the red and knocking the white towards the spot. And, well, I could have played it better than that. That's nice. So if half a dozen quick points here helps to trundle the score along. Now push the white up. You see there I've nudged the white up to the line. And that makes that mini drop cannon I've played for much more certain, I can assure you. And a bit of right hand side there to get top side of that red. And these little touches of side, these are the things that a lot of players perhaps don't like to risk playing, but you have to do it. Again, the white's gone up towards the line, but it hasn't materialized as I wanted, so I've gone away. And a lot of check side on that brings the red across, and in that case tend to ignore the white ball as long as you don't knock it into a bad position. So really, I've lost my way just a little there, and I've got to start trying to think about getting things back on an even keel. I've got the right side of the object white, and there again I've deliberately played the white, not to push it towards the spot, but to bounce it off the top cushion. That's the object white, up to the line, but I could have gone a fraction further. So again here, I've been maybe a little fortunate, but it gives me the opportunity of pushing the white nearer the spot and leaving the red over the pocket. So there we are, a recovery shot there for top of the table. And there you see, stay close, that's the motto. In that position, if that cue ball now was 18 inches away, I'd be faced with not a severe problem, but something that I would sooner be without. But being close, I've got tight control, so now I can just play a nice little stun. There we are, and I'm back virtually in a strong position. Now I want plenty of side on this one. Left hand side, there you see I've got under the white, and as you can see I've played a few recovery shots which are just not of the usual run. So let's hope that you can watch that and see if you can build something from it.
It's a strange thing about top of the table. Most players, I think, perhaps feel that professionalism is top of the table and red ball is amateur, which of course is nonsense really, because every great professional that has achieved the real heights has always started with red ball and learnt the rudiments of the game, the angles of the table and so on, and then perhaps advance to top the table. But however, that's a long story, and we're going to consider the benefits of playing top of the table and perhaps the best way to tackle it. Now, we all know that it's a very difficult game, and I think it's fair to say that if we're really going to be honest, you have to have a certain flair. You definitely require a skill of applying side in the gentle and sweet way that billiards requires. You have to be very discerning about pace of cue ball and object ball. So all in all, within a small area of the table, the control is very difficult. I don't really believe that you can teach top of the table. As in red ball, you can positively teach, because there are positive aims to go for, which we won't go into now, but I'm sure you will understand what I mean. Whereas when you play top of the table, there are basic principles that you should play to and try to observe as often as possible. But most of the time there are slight improvisations by applying a touch of side, check or running, or just a breath of side, a little bit of stun, top run through. All these things come in. Now, whereas in snooker the object is to avoid all those things as much as possible, at top of the table, if you're really going to be an expert, you can't avoid them. If you do avoid them, well, then you're not going to get so far, in my opinion. And I'm sure all players that have achieved any high standing at top of the table would agree with that. So what we should try and do is tackle the basic principles of top of the table, and then when you have to, as you become acquainted with it, you can apply all the little moves, the improvisations that you have to make according to your own ability to improvise. And the more you play, the more the game will unfold, and so you will advance. Let's say this, the fascination of it is incredible. To me, I still play, I still find sweet little moves, pretty little things happen which fascinate me, and I try to recapture them and so on and so forth. But however, what I have done is to draw the basic lines to the corner pockets and a line through the billiard spot across the table, similar to the Baulk line. And that line gives you a very good guide as to where you should try and keep the object white. Now, we all know about the floating white. Well, now, that really means that you're basically floating it about just behind the billiard spot, making little canons to avoid having to respot the red down the table on the other spot. So it really is a question of learning the basics of top of the table, having a plan in your own mind, one that you feel suits you, with a couple of shots that you've improvised for yourself which you seem to be able to handle, and then take it from there and play and play and play. And as I said, it will unfold. Now, the purpose of the line through the billiard spot across the table really helps you so much when you're, shall we say, potting a red and having to go down the table a little bit, over the line as it were, to get a return cannon from white to red, or the other way round, red to white, to keep the balls gathered around the spot. Now, if we go to the diagram, you will see that the advantage of having the awareness of that line, which of course you won't have in real play, but it's a line that you should always imprint on your mind. It's an imaginary line, and every time you play a pot or a canon where you need to put your cue ball at a certain point to get a nice little return cannon, what I always call something like a miniature drop cannon, so that you gently push one ball to the cushion and fetch it back and gather the balls. And it's only over a distance of probably 18 inches, no more. These are the angled shots which are so difficult to achieve when you're playing to a spot on the table where there is no indication, no visual aid to tell you where to put the ball. If you have that line in mind, instead of playing to get to a certain spot, you think to yourself, well, I want to be 3 inches above that line, or I'd like to be just above it, or 6 inches, whatever. And you find that in your concentration, as you're playing, that feeling of confidence, of
knowing that you have a guide, it's like having a little fella sitting on your shoulder saying, go on, that's all right, just get 6 inches above that line. And you just begin to accept it, and the concentration comes, and you find that it will help you tremendously. But that's enough of the words. Let's have a look at the lines and a little demonstration, because there is nothing like seeing it. Well, there we are. Every player's dream of top of the table. And it arrives very often, so why not find out about it? Now, there we are. We've already said extract as much as you can with the 10 break system from that. Now there comes a time when the cue ball sends this ball, for one reason or another, further away than you want. And the thing to value in top of the table is to keep this white within an area that you make your own, which is your idea of being safe. This distance here. Now when it gets too far away, you've obviously got to find means of getting it back. Well now, in doing that, when the white begins to get towards the side cushion, either side, it's very difficult to get it back this way, back there. But it's not so difficult to get it up this way. So therefore, the purpose of this line, this imaginary line, is when you play your canon to come underneath the red, underneath the white, off the red, instead of just dropping onto it there and trying to do that, which is very difficult, play with all the freedom, because remember the white has got away here to the side of the red. You can send that object white up to the line there, about there. Now that means you're ending up with a pot, something like this, wherever it is, but the fact is that with that ball being up to the line, the margin of error above the line is so much greater. Now there, I've gone to a point there which is 14 inches above the line. So we're quite a considerable way from the top cushion. But still the shot is perfect. Now, this is the point. You've played the pot with freedom. You're not trying to judge this cue ball to a perfect position. And with this ball being on the line, it means that your margin of error allows you to play with freedom, which is half the battle. Now, just as an example, if the ideal shot that you want, let's say you've gone well up the table, you come along, you can send the white back there, back to the spot, knock the red over there, pot your red, you go in there, pot goes back on the spot, you come back this way, you can then come under the white, or you can run through and just slip off the white. But if in playing the shot when you were here and you send that white back to there and you're ending up with a pot like that, which is a very simple pot, make it as simple as you like, you have to get what I call this mini drop canon. That's the position you want to achieve, is there, so that you can play the canon off the white to get just top side of the red, and you end up with a shot in your mind's eye, something like that there, so that you can pop the red and commence a little more rescuing of this white ball. Now when you're in that position, I can assure you that is not an easy shot. To get the perfect position here to make that a nice canon. But if the white is there, that shot becomes so simple because you can play with freedom, and that's half the battle. And these are the things They're so simple that they go undetected and people just don't find them out. Now the other one is this. And these are two, in my opinion, of the most common shots that occur, rescue shots, which go totally unnoticed. And might I add, when I say through my experience, I'm only passing on what I learned, well, how long ago, goodness me, 1929. That's long enough, isn't it? With Tom Newman, who was the great player before Joe Davis. And these were just one or two of his moves, and they really do cover a multitude of shots around the spot where they're very similar, nothing is the same. No two shots are the same at this game, you must remember that. So now look, I've set up a perfect position here. There. Now that again is a perfect position, and it will happen so many times where you can play the cannon, send the red forward here, come under the white, and gently, because you're close to the spot, you can protect the white ball, keep it close to the spot, and then take your pot and come up here, and that's super. Now just look at the difference. Back to the same position. This is exactly the same position. Now if you come here, now I can assure you from this position here, that shot is not on. And one who's not aware of what to do will probably look at it and try and pop the red and screw back, or play a cannon, come under the white, do all sorts of silly things. Whereas if you work it out, because you've come from perfection 1 inch there, you're now sort of, I wouldn't say struggling, but you're not making it easier. In fact, by just using a little bit of check side off this cushion, there, you can send this red from the spot back to the cushion and back again. So you're putting more pace in the red ball, taking it a little thicker and coming past the white here, which is about 1 inch past the white, and with check side that will straighten the white up and come up behind the white and knock it to there, and you'll be left with a shot something like that, with a cue ball there, and you're in perfect position. And all these shots will reoccur 1,001 different ways, and you have to have the awareness to apply a little bit of check side or running side. It's the same as if the white gets a little bit too far that way. If you have the ability, from the same shot you can play slightly thicker on the red, send the red maybe to there, come off the cushion with just a breath of side, in this case running side, left hand side, and instead of coming up under the white and knocking it to there, you actually catch it just a bit thinner and just glance off it and just give it that little extra push towards the spot, so that you end up with potting that red, simple pot, and coming back to here, and you're in perfect position. Now I'm sure if you just try these things, and if I can just play this one just to show you. Now that is perfection. That is perfection. Now we are rather a little bit iffy. There's a pot. I could pot and go through and come out here. Have to be very accurate. Don't want to disturb the white, and it's getting far enough away anyway. So why bother? Take the red a little bit thicker, come through to there, check off that cushion, which straightens the white up to there, touches the white, and not only that, by taking the red thicker, bearing in mind it's all about weight factor, you're hitting more of the red, so therefore you put more pace into the red, and by hitting more of the red you take the pace off the cue ball, so it gives you freedom of play. So just watch this with a little bit of check side. There we are. Absolutely perfect. Now just get about a few inches above the line with a breath of check. There. Perfect. So now you put the red back on the spot, and there we are. Now there's just a couple of shots where you can build and build around them, and the confidence they will give you, and they will open up the door to so many shots. So give it a try. Well, let's try this top of the table with just a practice routine, and I'll try and talk my way through it, and if I miss or break down, or I have to go away to keep going, I will stop anyway. There's no point in going away and then trying to come back at this stage. We're just having a look at top of the table just to see if we can find just a few points out, and maybe I may mention something that perhaps has slipped past you and you haven't thought about, which will help you considerably. Now the two white lines here, I've put them on the table, on the cushions, to save drawing the white line all the way through it. It tends to spoil the cloth anyway, and it puts you off when you're playing a bit. So that's a fair indication of the position of the cue ball as we're playing. That is above the line of aim. No side. Down over the line. Simple pot. Simple cannon, no side. Now here's a shot that, to keep close to the work, you can actually pop that red to this far knuckle and quite well inside the fall of the pocket, or outside rather of the fall. And if you apply a bit of right hand side and play it gently, you'll actually throw the red into the pocket, and it permits you to play a gentle stroke. You'll find that will creep into your game quite a lot. Push through the red off the side cushion. Just above the line. Gentle cannon. Touch your right hand side. Now I can, if I wish, I can pop the red and stop there, or I can go a little higher and return the white even closer to the spot. So let's try that one. Now left hand side, not too hard. Now that's come out nicely. Give me a lovely angle that I don't have to use the side cushion here. I can just screw up Plain ball, very thick on the red. Well, this time I can use the cushion. I could play without, but I'll use the cushion with a touch of check, just to keep it above the line and fairly straightish to give me a natural angle, so that all I have to do is pot the red. And that gives me a natural angle on the cannon. No side, gentle cannon. Now again, I can stun up here, I can get that white back again, so now a little stun down the table. There we are. This time I won't need the rest. Now make sure I just push the red towards the pocket, just a hint of left hand side. That's got it really nice and tight up to the spot. So now a little bit of check side. Don't want it running too far down the table. Now a little bit of right hand side, check off the red. That gives me a tiny angle. In fact, I could stay there or I can screw back. And as the white is this side of the spot, why not screw back and be in perfect position? And when you're screwing back like this, make sure your cue is really parallel. Parallel to the bed of the table there. Don't play like this. Again, no side needed here. Now, a very, very sweet little stun, but it's got to be sweet. See, and that's taken me just an inch above the line, which means now that I have quite a simple pot, nice and close, and all I've got to do is just knock it in. Again here, no side needed, maybe a hint of check, right hand side. Now I've moved the white, my distance anyway, which is about 3 inches, and the white again is this side. I've got a very simple pot, so I can take the opportunity, if I'm feeling good, to keep that white tight to the spot. So now I've come down the table a bit, underneath the white, not too hard, nice little touch. Now check side with the red, stop the white going too far down the table. Actually, I could have gone a fraction further there, so I'm going to push that red off the side cushion. Very thin, and fortunately I've got just a little angle which allowed me to pull that white down the table. And the more you can avoid those tricky ones, that wasn't easy, that shot. And again now, a shot that I wouldn't advocate if you can avoid it, and that is having to screw back. So when you're doing this shot, don't try and screw all the way back. It isn't necessary. Just strike low, cue nicely, and just screw back 4 or 5 inches. Shorten up on your butt end. There we are, perfect. And that really is a little bit of a get out of trouble shot. Now, it's fairly straight, but because I'm close, I can keep control. There. Now, again, I've gone fairly straight, so I've got to play this with side and be careful. Make sure you cue nicely. Take it as a very difficult shot, not an easy one. There aren't any easy shots. Again, I've gone too straight again for comfort, so it's another straight screw back, not too far. Now again, because I'm close, I can keep control of this and play a little stun off the red onto the white, sending the red to the cushion. So really, I've got myself out of trouble, or possible trouble there. Again, a little bit of left-hand side, check off the red. And gradually this white, because of the previous little errors I've made, which happens all the time, the white is getting further than I like it away from the spot. So we'll gradually see if we can get it back. So I've come a little further down the table this time. Now, if I play this and push the red towards the pocket, and as long as I can come off this white on this side, on the same side as the red, that will send the white back here, because I should be using right hand side. See, now I've given myself a greater angle behind the spot here, so that when I pop this red, I can get underneath the white and get that white up to this line here. That's the important thing. That's what you want to work for when you begin to get in trouble. Well, when you're playing your top of the table, if you're a fairly good player and you enjoy the top and you get there and you play quite a lot, you're going to be in this sort of position a lot of times, and it's going to be typical of billiards. It's going to be a variation of this shot 1,000 different ways, and so what I've done is, obviously it would take a month of Sundays to go into it in total detail, and then you wouldn't be finished or satisfied. So what I've done, I've marked the position of these balls. So if I mention them now, you'll have them if you want to practice the method. Now, the red is on its spot. This first object white is 8.5 inches. There we are, I've written it on the cushion. I can't remember them all the time. 8.5 inches from the top cushion. The red is 33 inches. The white, I beg your pardon, the white is 33 inches from that side cushion. And this white here, the cue ball, is 23.5 inches from the cushion there, 23.5 inches, and 22 inches from the cushion to there.
So now you have the measurements and you can begin to practice the shot. This will present itself many times and it can be played so many different ways. Now, the reason I've put this shot up in is because this is where you play the canon, not the pot. I mean, the pot would be a little bit tricky. You've got to come back, you want to come back for whatever reason. So you play the canon. You've potted the red, it's on its spot, you're now going to play the canon. Now, according to where the white is, you will get a variation of little cannons from the top cushion to push the white nearer the spot or up to the line, as we've indicated in other parts. Now, the two ways, the basic two ways of playing this is, if you're playing and you might not be feeling 100%, you might be early in the game or whatever and you haven't got your touch right and you don't want to mess it up. So you play it gently and fairly thin. I say thin because you don't want to put a lot of pace in the object red. So I'll play the shot with a hint of left hand side and fairly thin. And I don't want to push the white ball too far. So there you see, I've now pushed the white almost up to the line, and I can pot the red and come out here. I can either check off the side cushion, if you like soft screws and the rest of it, you can pull up here to virtually the same position. Then, in fact, I'll do it for you rather than talk about it. So I'll play that with a bit of check side off the side cushion. And there we are. Now, according to how you feel, you can play that canon there. The white comes back towards the spot. You pot the red. There we are, and Bob's your uncle, you're in business. Right, now, we'll put the balls back. This is the other shot. There we are, we're in exactly the same position. Now I'm really feeling confident. I'm 500 in front. I think, well, I've got this game tied up. So you playing and you really want to get things going. So now I'm going to take that red thicker. I'm going to push it further. And by hitting it thicker, I kill the pace in this, so that with more pace, I'm sending this ball over to the pocket and maybe back a little bit. I'm coming nicely off that cushion. The pace has been taken out of it a little, and the check side, just a hint of check side, will ensure that it's even less. So now I'm going to go past the white and check back onto the white again off the cushion. Hint of check side there. There we are. Now I've got pot red, and again I can play without any side, and I can come out to where I have, which is perfect, or I can come out here for another pot. I can then pot the red, go to there, play another canon underneath. It goes on and on, and from that one position, if you play to get the feel of this canon, this is the rescue canon, call it what you will, at the top of the table. Now you're going to get lots of others, I know, but this is the one that will ensure that you begin to understand the floating white, and you'll be amazed if you can impart side gently to the cue ball. You'll find it'll open up a whole nest of shots. So there you are. Persevere, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and you'll improve, I promise you. Well, now here we are again, top of the table's dream of position, absolutely perfect, and yet so often things go wrong so quickly. And as you can see in this shot,
as indeed in all the top of the table that we've played, so often you see that shot, and it does appear that you just get down and play a little gentle canon, no bother, and carry on playing. Well, it isn't quite as simple as that. What you want to be aware of is that you can direct that ball wherever you want, according to your ability to impart side to the cue ball. And at the same time, as I've said repeatedly, you want to protect the distance of that ball from the red spot. Now, if you can look through the shot there, you will see that that isn't a straight pot, so I can't, when I say can't, I can screw back, but if I do, I'm going to be saddled with having to play a canon off the white ball first onto the red, thus sending that too far away. And we want to protect that distance for that faulty break that I talked about. So now, if I play this shot, instead of playing to send the red to a certain place, just hit the red very gently, full in the face, and with the side I impart, which in this case would be left-hand side, it would direct the red that way, and because I've aimed full in the face of the red, thus taking the full weight of the red, it will curb any pace in that ball, very gentle pace, and protect this ball from going too far away. Now, just to show the effect of side, I've marked this ball with a couple of crosses there, so that you can see the effect of the side. So now, there we are back. Look, that is not quite a dead straight pot. Screw back not desirable. So I want a nice, easy position after this. So I'm playing now to hit that red ball full in the face with left-hand side. Now there you see, I've created an angle there. Look, there's the angle. So now I have a simple angle where I can stun up to there, I can come off the cushion, I can come back here, or I can even screw back to here, because the white is being this side of the spot is a nice convenient way to play to protect that distance. Now, having said that, if we now set the same shot up again, and for whatever reason, this time you have what looks to be virtually the same shot, but it isn't. It's almost a pot to there. There we are, through there. It probably would go in with a gentle push. Now, if I play with right-hand side, I can now hit the red again full in the face, just marginally off centre, and these are very small limits, and scratch the edge of this white and ensure that I don't get a cover on that white, because the side will carry me off the white. So now I'm going to play it with the right hand side, and you'll see, you can see the effect of the side. There we are, look, there's the shot. Almost the same as the other one, there. You see, and you see the side on there has hardly nudged that 1/4 of an inch and potted and given me a lovely pot for the red. Now the point is, and this is the important thing, I'm not suggesting that you have to do this. You can in fact do that with no side at all. But now, you see I've got a straighter pot. I'm not saying there isn't an angle, but you're cutting your limits very fine there. You see, and again, there we are, look, I've made a mistake. The mistake is that I'm not there. Now, they are very important factors in you discovering just how the side effect, when you play off-centre striking, will turn that ball and turn the object ball
there. It's a very important point. I hope you think it's worth mentioning, but if you look carefully in some of the breaks, you'll see precisely that. Okay? Well, we've had lots of top of the table with the floating white, which of course is the, I think most players find the attractive way to play, but then you get the person who gets very frustrated because he gets little covers and doesn't get perhaps the success that he would like, so he turns to Postman's knock as a match-winning type of game. And the idea is that the white is tight on the cushion, you get the double kiss off the white, sending the red to the pocket, then pop the red and come out for another double kiss cannon. And that's where the name comes from. It's a postman's rat-tat-tat on the door sort of thing. So we'll put a few together and just see. Now the secret, of course, is when you pop the red, judging the pace to come out for the cannon. But again, simple as it may look, it isn't that easy, and you have to have the skills of being able to use side to extend or lessen the angle of the cue white off the red, just to keep that white tight on the cushion with that little kiss. And I personally, I don't mind playing it if the opportunity occurs, and gather some easy points, but I must say I do find it a little boring to play it in practice. Well, if you're in good touch, this can go on for quite a while. But at least that puts you in the picture. Well, again, here's another shot. Looks so simple, but again, one of the frustrating shots at the top of the table. The player who's not too clever at top of the table and struggles a bit will look at it and curse his luck. Simply that there is a very simple cannon from there to the cushion to there, but you will end up in a position that I've mentioned previously, where you're between the two balls, because if you play thin off the red, you move the red to there, you kiss the white, you might go just slightly the other side, get a cover, or you knock the white to there, and your position here, and you've got a sort of a tricky screw shot, and you're struggling. We are. That just isn't on. Cover. So now, right hand side. There we are. Now, again, and this happens at top of the table all the time. You get little frustrating moves where you're still in play, but you overhit it slightly, and you get frustrated and think, when are they going to go the way I want them? Well, that isn't bad. You mustn't get frustrated. You've got to look at it and improvise again. So it's a simple shot, laying across there, catching the red, thin there. Then play the shot backwards as you've played from the other side of the white, there.
There we are. Now you push the white behind the spot and you're in a position where you can pop the red and play 3, 6, 9, or you can pop the red, come out 3, 6, 9, whatever you want to do. So if you don't get frustrated and you keep improvising, you gradually begin to invent and find your own way. And believe me, once you get some success with these little shots, they stick in the subconscious. And suddenly it crops up and it comes to you and you play it. And this is how you keep on putting your knowledge together, and you just have to keep playing and fiddling around the spot, and gradually you begin to get the touch, the feel, the recognition of what is on, and so on. It's a very tricky business. All right? Now, in all these practice routines, if you're practicing, it's nice to have a little bit of light-heartedness come into your play, and this is the sort of shot that gives you a lot of satisfaction. It's a bit of a fun shot, but not difficult to play. So I'm going to pop the red in the middle pocket with left-hand side, kiss off the red, swerve around the yellow, and go in off the white. A fun shot, but it just breaks the monotony of practice, gives you a bit of satisfaction. Top on the cue ball. And in these cases, you always want to try to keep the cue as parallel as you can to the bed of the table. There, you see? Look at that. Money for old rope. Well, another fun shot here. In off 10 reds, off 10 cushion contacts. We don't skid through and take the reds all in one go. It's cushion red, cushion red, cushion red, 10 times. Now this is a shot worth putting in your locker. It's a kiss in off, one that you rarely see played, and yet it really isn't such a difficult shot. All you do is make sure that the object red is tight on the cushion and just play a thickish half ball with top and side to swerve you into the pocket. In other words, instead of playing a kiss that throws you straight back across the table, you come in thinner than half ball and just get the kiss throwing you towards the pocket. And if you have the correct side on, and in this case it would be right hand side, you'll find it'll pull you into the pocket. And it's a shot that you just want to play around with until you begin to, you'll get one and suddenly you get the message, and then you begin to get somewhere. A shot really worth playing. Well, now, we've seen quite a bit of top of the table, and obviously you have to get there. We've been through the two methods. I've mentioned that it's potting and getting to the top, dropping the white at the top, the other of course being the drop cannon. Well, now the drop cannon you cannot predict. It's a very precarious shot. It's simple enough to get a cannon, and most players, I'm sure, can recognise when a drop cannon is on, and they can probably spot fairly well for it. But the fact is that the first object ball, white, can tend to come across, and you get little covers. It comes across here and it bounces off and it covers the cue ball, and you get into all sorts of trouble. Well, now, as I say, there's no hard and fast rule, and it's just a question of finding out the best way for you to play it. But there is one thing that is very, very important, and that is that you must try and learn to float the cue ball. Try to put the pace into this ball, the object white, and float this ball, the cue ball, gently down onto the red, and don't try and knock the red to the pocket. Approach the red ball with the cue ball on a line to hit the red more or less full in the face from here, so that the red goes in that direction, and it doesn't need to go any further than that. Now if you do that, you're putting a little more pace into this one, because it's got to go from there to there to there, and this one you're gently knocking on and off the cushion and leaving the cue ball here, and you're less likely to get this ball coming across and getting in front of you. Now I'll play 3 shots, and as I say, you can't predict, but I'll play one from the normal correct half ball position from the D, and let me just mention that this, obviously the red's on the spot for practice purposes. This first object white is 10 inches from the centre of the pocket there, and 15 inches from the side cushion. The cue ball is 4 inches from the centre of the D. So there we are. There is a half ball cannon onto the red. Now just let's see how it goes. I'll play with outside and just take it half ball, centre ball striking. Now you can see I am in fact covered. There's no problem in scoring, but I am covered. Now, and again, it's happened as I anticipated, that this white has come up and covered me, not entirely in this case, so it's not important, but it could well have been there, and then under tight conditions with concentration, etc., wanting to win, you have problems. So you've got to try and avoid that situation. So now, what I'm suggesting is, and this is a method again, this is brings back memories for me, because this is what Tom and Joe, they were very keen on this sort of game, and they played this to perfection. So now my suggestion is this, that if you take the second or the first object ball, the white, a little thicker, so that in fact if you play it with running side, which would be right hand side here, you would have to spot the cue ball a little nearer to the centre spot of the D. That is because a hint of right hand side on there will tend to throw this ball a little squarer to the cushion and take you across here as opposed to down here and up there. Now, if you play with check side, you can in fact come marginally closer to the furthest spot of the D, and again take this ball fractionally thicker than half ball, and you tend to push the white ball again a little further down the table, trying to avoid this cover coming up here. So I'll play one with the side, right hand side, one with left, and we'll see what happens. So there's the original position for a perfect half ball. Now I'm going to take this a fraction wider, so I've come a little nearer the centre of the D, And I'm just going to put a breath of right hand side on that and strike bang centre ball. There. Now what I've done there, in putting the side on, I've struck, just pulled this cue ball off line, and I've in fact struck that half ball. So we'll play that again. And this time I will allow for the side that I'm putting on by taking the white ball a fraction thicker. And I've still moved the cue ball a little nearer the D. So now I'm just below centre, slide on there. Now you see the white ball is still coming across and getting in front of me. Now, this is the point. This is the bit you want to learn. Now I'm back in the same spot. And this time I'm going to take the ball a little wider, in other words nearer the outside spot, and I'm going to take a fraction of check. So now I'm 5.5 inches from the centre spot. Now I'm going to try and float this white with a thicker contact on the first object white. Touch of check side. Now you see the difference. What I've done, I've pushed the white further down here with check side. The white has floated more, and coming further down here has brought me wider here, and I've come up there towards the spot. That is perfect. So now it's just a question of a little pot in the pocket, and there we are, that's top of the table. Now the point is, I could play those 3 or 4 shots again and would have quite, not entirely different, but there would be tricky ones. Sometimes they go right, sometimes they don't. You will begin to find the best way for you to play them, how you put side on, whether it's check or running, how you spot a little wider or a little narrower, and you experiment and you find the best way. And the more you practice, the more you can begin to apply that sort of technique according to your own ability to impart side or whatever. And you know, this is what the game is all about. It isn't the same for every player. We're all different. Well, there you are. I wish you luck.
Now, I think this is a must for any billiard player, because here so often you can find this position crops up where you want to play 3-6-9 and you can't cut the red in, and you badly need to be in the 3-6-9 position. So now you play a full ball on the red and using strong but very sweet in touch on the red with the cue ball, and the side will judder the ball into the pocket and leave you in a perfect position for the cross loser to send the red down to the middle pocket. Just a very nice gentle stroke. Well, now the Masse stroke, not one that I would recommend for everybody to play, especially on somebody else's table. But I would point out, if you watch carefully, the tip of my cue doesn't touch the bed of the table, and I just clip the red very, very lightly and completely Masse round into the pocket. It's I would say a very difficult shot, so if you play it, please be careful about the cloth. So, and the cue truly vertical. Not bad, eh? Well, here's an interesting shot.
This is a 10 shot, all 3 balls in the pocket. The 2 balls there are literally jammed in the jaws of the pocket. The idea is to strike the white first with top and left hand side pretty well full in the face, forcing the white through, and the cue ball rebounds off the white, but the top that you have on the ball drives it forward, pots the red and follows it into the pocket. Quite a good shot. It gives you a nice feeling and it's a bit of fun. I wonder how many players here would look at that and think, well, it's a difficult shot, but I must try and pot it, clip it along the cushion. Well, why try and pot it? Just watch this. Bundles of left-hand side, plenty of top, and it'll go along that cushion as sweet as a nut. And I must confess, when you put that red ball behind the billiard spot tight on the cushion and the cue ball in that position, it does look impossible. But it'll certainly test your cue power. Take it to the point of 3/4 ball contact, just about avoiding the kiss back from the red, and you'll see the action. It looks so easy. Try it. Now this time the red is just slightly off the cushion, and we're going to slip that cue ball along the cushion into the corner pocket, and at the same time keep control of the red, which should go no further than the middle pockets, giving you a long loser or an in-off or whatever. Now the secret here is not to try and judge the contact on the red, but take the red as thin as you possibly can and muster all the power and screw that you can get from within you. And that is easier to judge than doing it the other way round. Take my advice, try it. Thin contact, all the power you can muster. Well, another shot here that looks like a power shot, but really it's very demanding of good cueing and perfect contact on the red. The object being that you take the red about 3/4 ball with strong, in this case, left hand side and plenty of top, cue parallel to the bed of the table and cue right through the shot and off the red onto the top cushion and into the pocket. Leave out the brute force. This is a little run-through routine that I play at every opportunity if ever I'm just waiting or fiddling around, just enjoying myself. It proves excellent cueing and pushing the cue through the shot. And this one you see here is a run through, length of the table, reverse side, so it's left hand side, and the spin on the ball hugs the cushion into the pocket. And you can only get that following through nicely. This way is with the nap. Now this time it's pocket side, push through exactly the same, and look how that side hugs the cushion, and in she goes. This, I think, is an extremely good shot to play. This time the red is off the cushion. You've got very little sighting there. You've got to find your line, plenty of top and left hand side, push through, and there you see it fizzes up the table and into the pocket. Now I hope you're going to forgive me for this, but I was experimenting entirely on my own with the camera, and I was determined to get behind the cue because I know that's where everybody likes to see the shot played, and it's virtually impossible. So what I did, I put the camera in the pocket that is out of view obviously, and I tried playing around the camera, under the camera, over the camera, And I succeeded to such an extent that I said, well, whatever happens, I want this to be on the film. And so have a look and judge for yourself. It was really a struggle, but I got there. So watch this carefully. I have about 3 foot at least over my bridge hand playing this, trying to avoid the camera. Nice little double kiss off the red there. See, thin on the white, just to leave a bit of pace in the cue ball. But I tell you what, this wasn't half a tough one. Little bit of left hand side, take the red along. I nearly got into trouble playing this one. I thought I'd broken the camera. And when you're playing like this, it's surprising, even with close canons, the being able to use check or running side, even at this slow pace, makes quite a difference to the outcome of position. There again, left hand side, just took that red along. This is getting really difficult now. Well, here I'm almost getting to the end of my tether. I can hardly reach, and the camera is, or was, under the cue butt there. Cushion first that time. I'm stretched across the table now. At least the camera isn't in the way, but it's a long stretch, so I've had to take the rest eventually. and in doing so I've taken the red too thick, so there we are. I suppose one might say, well, that's the end of the break, but you never know. Not bad, eh? This is quite legal. This is allowed. So back to dodging the camera again. It's getting virtually impossible. Well, I try to restore the position here, but I don't quite succeed. But I thoroughly enjoyed that. A few canons. Now, there was rather a fun piece on the video where I struggled to try and capture the line behind the cue playing the canons, which is very difficult to do for the simple reason that either the cameraman or the gear that they use gets in the way when you're playing various shots. So because it was the first time we tried it, I wanted that in the video, and you've seen it, and perhaps it's made you smile. I hope so. So I'd like to play just a few canons for those who want to dabble with canons. Not that the present day method of playing 150 up gives you much opportunity for that. I'm afraid that's one of the things that is virtually being thrown away. However, we'll have a try, and I'll talk with a little bit of side, indicating where it's necessary, where it isn't, and why I'm playing it. And then you can fiddle around and have your own bit of fun, but they're pretty hard to play, I can assure you. So here we go. There's a nice set position there. A marvellous shot I played before this. The balls were all over the table, and I made a whacking cannon, and they just dropped together like that. Wasn't I lucky? So here we go. Now, here I want a very tiny kiss off the red, just to take me above the white with a touch of right hand side, which will do that. There. So I'm above the white. Now I've got to come round here, and I've got to keep this white parallel to the cushion. Now if I take just a hint of left hand side there we're back where we started. So now left hand side will take the red along. So a little breath of left hand side there. Now if I come right around here and take a little bit of right hand side, very, very slight, there. Gave me the double kiss on the red, which saved me getting a cover. So now left hand side again. Now back here, and this time the red is a little bit this way, so I want it to go along just a little bit. So I'm going to take the white very thin with a hint of left hand side, and you see that red nudged, what, less than 1/4 of an inch, but it's vital. Now I want a little more side to take it underneath the white more. There we are. Now, I'm in danger here. If I play the canon, I might knock the white to there and come off the red and have a cover
where I've got to play a Masse. Well, I don't want to do that. So I want to keep in front of both balls. And this is a vital shot. So now with a little bit of right hand side, it will check me off the red. And you'll hear a very tiny little double treble kiss. There we are. And that's put me perfectly in position again for a simple canon, a hint of left hand side. There we are. Now if I come right straight onto the shot, I now have the opportunity, the two whites are not touching. I can clip the white very, very lightly, come off the red, come onto the cushion and come back here, and with a bit of luck and a little bit of left hand side, I'll be in a good position. Now I've got the canon, believe it or not. I actually got the canon. Now a little bit of check side, which is left hand side off the red. Now check side again off the red, right hand side. Hear the double kiss on the red. Now I want to get above both balls because I'm slightly getting below the white and I don't want to keep playing across the balls. So now I'm going to play with right hand side and a bit thicker on the red. There we are. So now I've got above the white and I'm still maintaining a very good position. Now a little thicker on the white and right hand side to check off the red. There. And I'm in perfect position again. Now a little thicker on the red with right hand side to get above the white again. There we are, perfect. Now check off the white with right hand side. Now left hand side to take the red along, only a little. Now this one's a little bit different. The red has got almost underneath my cue ball, so I want a little bit stronger side and a double kiss off the red, and it's taken the red along a bit. Now I can play left hand side again, thin on the white, double kiss on the red, and there we are, back in the position that I actually started. So now I take the red thick with right hand side, and in this case lower on the cue ball. And did you see that little bit of extra life in the cue ball there? Now I can play a very gentle one with hardly any side at all. Now again, bottom on the cue ball, thicker, a little thicker on the red, and there's perfect position. Now I can play according to how I fancy, and in this case I can actually play to miss the white on the way in and catch it as the red hits the cushion and comes back, and I just brush the white and this red kisses me back here. So I can play this with a little firmer strength. You hear the double kiss on the red. So now a little bit of right hand side. Now again there's space behind the red, so I can push the white along just a little way and the red to the cushion. There we are. You've seen the way of tackling the canons by using a little bit of left hand side to run the ball on the cushion and right hand side, check side to hold it, using the ball on the cushion to get a little kiss to keep you in position. And you only need to play 10 or 12 canons and just see how the action goes, and according to your touch, and you won't find it that difficult to play them along the cushion, and the more patience you have, well, the further you can go.
Well, I've had a run of a few cannons down the side cushion, and this is how, or one of the ways, to get around the corner. I just open the cannons up a little and then just take the red a wee bit thicker, drive it round the two cushions. You'll see what I mean, and then continue the run along the top cushion. So we're round the corner. Double kiss there. And there we are, nicely in position, and we can continue that along the top cushion.
This is a good practice, and it's a bit of fun as well to give a nice touch for close cannons, and it looks comparatively easy, but I can assure you it's a very slight rocker cannon, and it does demand good touch, and the idea is to try and get the cue ball coming back the same distance every time. And you begin to develop a nice touch and rhythm for cannon play. And you can have a bit of fun and see how quickly you can get them going, you know, you can... Well, there you are.
The red on the side cushion, on the baulk line, tight on the cushion, cue ball, proximity of the brown spot. You take the red, a thickish half ball, top on the cue ball and right hand side, and allow the kiss that will take place to throw the ball out. The side, the strong right hand side, will pull it back on the nap and into the top pocket. A shot worth playing and getting the feel of, can very often get you out of trouble. You may need a canon rather than the in-off, but try it. This time a kiss in-off into the corner pocket in the baulk area, and bearing in mind that this time you're playing against the nap, so there is a very slight difference in ball contact, and don't let the cue ball dawdle too much, because bearing in mind you're playing against the nap and you're using left hand side, and the nap effect will alter the ball if it's too slow, so play it nice and crisp.
Well, here's a shot. Obviously you don't want to lose the white, you can't run through, it just isn't on because the angle's in the way. So you just play a 3/4 ball on the white, sending it slightly to the right hand side on the cue ball, and you should get a double kiss as this white comes back and kisses the cue ball into the pocket. Now that is a shot that really will get you out of trouble, and you're left with a nice little in-off from hand, and away you go on that 1000 break. How's that? Well, here's another nice little shot. Again, get you out of trouble, but I do know for a fact that a lot of chaps, when they're playing, they wonder if the shot's on, and you know, it can be a very vital shot. Obviously, again, it's the white more than the red, because you could always pop the red, but you don't obviously want to pop the white. Now, the way to be sure, and it's quite simple really, is if you look at the pot, you will and try and measure in your own mind's eye that the distance from there to the cushion on both sides of the ball is at least equal to the width of the ball, which is 2 1/16. Now, if you feel that that ball is in, shall we say, that position, it isn't on, because there's no way that you can push that ball away without it won't slip back off the cushion and kiss. But if the two differences come to the width of the ball, which is approximately there, although that looks impossible to get through, with strong right hand side in this case, which is really running side off the cushion, and you'll get the shot. So it's a question of looking and using a judgment to see if the width of the ball is there, adding two sides together. So let's have a try. Lots of right hand side, and don't be frightened of getting top on as well. It gives a lot of action to the cue ball there. Happens very quickly, but nevertheless it works. Well, here's another simple shot. Frustrating, you've played a drop cannon, or you've tried to engineer the balls to the top of the table, you think you've done nicely, and you just get the cover. And again, have a look in this situation, and this first ball that's blocking your path to the red can be further out, not too far out, but even a little more than it is there, which is just over a ball's width. And imagine that you're playing the shot from here. Now that would be simplicity itself there, just to nudge the white, knock it up a little bit, and drop on the red, hey presto, top of the table. Well, all you have to do is, don't be frightened of the shot, play with a little bit of running side, right hand side, quite gently there. There we are. The white's up to the spot, and you can take a little bit of pot luck here. You may kiss the red nicely. In this case it's not too difficult, you can get back for the cannon. But there again, I'll play it once more just to show, look. Make this one a little harder. So now it's not quite so easy to judge the distance, because I'm coming onto the cushion at a sharper angle, so I want to be further under the white. Play gently. Here we are, and that's perfect.
Well, now here's an unusual shot. The white ball is just 5 inches behind the red, and the red is on the baulk line. Now I'm going to play in-off into the centre pocket, and all the left-hand side I can muster, and as much pace control as I can put together. Just watch this. Well, now in-off into the middle pocket from the centre of the D, seemingly impossible. A lot of top, a lot of side, right hand side, and not too much power in as much as you hit the ball hard. It's really a flowing push through shot, really worth one learning to play this feel of the shot. That's the important thing. Tremendous side. Well, here's another shot, a Masse, which is absolutely full of satisfaction here. It's possibly you might never need it in that sort of situation, but if you know that you have that power within you, it gives you a little bit of confidence. And of course the technique is that on a very tight, deep Masse like this, you want to get the cue truly vertical and get a little bit of twist into your body to ensure that the cue doesn't waver on the downward stroke. And don't put too much brute force, too much muscle in it. Let the cue do the work, and you see what happens. And that cue ball will travel out into the table, when you think about it, something like 6 to 7 inches, and then come back into the pocket. Well, there we are. Now, you saw me play a simple canon, full length of the table, not the sort of shot that one needs or wants to play, because it's a policy you will find throughout the game that when you're playing and you get into a position where you have two boards close together at the top end of the table, and you may have gone in off and you're in hand, and you've got to play a canon as you saw me play there, that you can get so much drift if you play it gently. Now, if you feel you in that position and you have to play it gently, you want to play it gently, you may have noticed that I played it not from the straight position in line with the balls when they were in that position. I played it from the corner of the D. Well, it's very simply for this reason. If you play that shot and you play it straight up, virtually over the spots or thereabouts, any drift which you can get at that slow pace, and this is the danger of the shot, you can drift and you can come up and you can catch that ball a little bit thick, or that one, and because you catch it thick at that slow pace, this almost becomes like a brick wall. It virtually plonks and stops, and you might just miss the cannon. And I've actually seen that happen, and I can tell you, I'm not going to mention names, but I saw that happen once with quite a good player in a final of a championship. And so therefore, if you play across the shot, as you play onto this first ball, whichever one you take from either side, if you play virtually three-quarter ball, you're giving yourself a much bigger margin of error. And as you saw with the shot I played, any little tinkle in there, and you're pretty well sure to leave yourself a little recovery shot, which is better than not getting anything at all. So there we are. That's just a little hint that, well, it might come in handy, and you may be able to apply it. Now, again, we're talking about a long shot where you don't want the ball to drift. So that brings us round to drag. Now, drag, in that case, with a shot like that, if you put a lot of drag on, and that means hitting the ball on the bottom and skidding the ball through so that when it takes up its forward rotation, a lot of the power has gone out of the shot. So let me just show you, perhaps, with some balls that you may never have seen before. So we'll put those out of the way, and here we have a set of balls, and these are what they call target balls. And these were made about nearly 85 years ago, and they are beautifully made, and I've heard some people say they can't recapture them, or it isn't worth the expense that it would cost to produce them today. But let me just explain to you the purpose of them. And you know, we keep talking about pushing the ball off and allowing for the curve and so on. Well, obviously, the less push off you have makes the shot, shall we say, not easier, but it certainly gives you more confidence, because you don't alter the path of the cue ball from its original line of aim so much, so you haven't got so much correction to make. So therefore, if you hit the ball, I won't show you that bit for a moment, if you hit the ball with side on there, you are actually pushing that ball with right hand side, you're pushing it to the left, and of course it will eventually come back, assuming you've done everything correctly. and the same on that side, it will push to the right. Now, it's pretty obvious that if you could play the shot with side and you could strike much nearer the centre of the ball, you will have less push-off because there isn't so much of this pushing away. Now, this is where the target balls come in. Let me assure you that most players, when they're putting side on, and with great respect, I'm talking about the player who may not be quite so good, and the club player who's struggling to make a 50 break, he puts side on, and because the word is side, he tends to want to hit it well on the side, and he thinks the nearer he can get to the side, he'll get more on. Well, it's a myth. Let me tell you, putting side on is all in the butt hand, in the wrist, and in your cue action. And there we are. Look, the secret is to strike within the circumference of that ball. There are the striking points. Now you see, if I put maximum side on there, I strike round about 5 o'clock, and I'm quite close to the centre of the ball. In other words, I'm hitting the meat of the ball, and the push-off is less, and the cue ball goes straighter on the line of aim. And the side effects are, of course, there is top at 12 o'clock. You get considerable side, maximum almost, at 3 o'clock. When you start coming round to 4 and 5 o'clock, you're beginning to get what I call a real bite into the ball, and maybe increasing the side effect. And of course, as you come around here, you're now getting down to deep screw. Now, if you look at that ball on the table, you will see that maximum side is not quite as low as you thought. The secret is getting through the ball and having a tip that will grip the ball. There we are. So you see, you don't have to go to these exaggerated lengths of striking to the side of the ball. And there we are. There's the target centre, and there are the target points for striking the ball. And this is how, there's nothing new at this game. All these things were thought about by the great masters of the past, and well, one begins to wonder what they would have done under the conditions that we have today. But there we are, that's a long story. So now we come to the red ball, and this is all about lines of aim and the context. Now, the one thing I want to impress on everybody is that the line of aim is quite different to the contact. I mean, you hear players say, well, I'm going to strike that quarter ball or half ball, and that is the contact. Well, now, what they mean really is, they mean the line of aim, because there is no player that has ever been born or ever will be born, unless he's got laser eyes, that can take that ball, which is one bland colour, without the lines of course, any colour, and put it 10 feet away, and is able to recognise any particular spot on that ball to aim at. Now, he could there, but not when you're playing billiards or snooker, when you've only got one colour. So, what do? You do what the golfer does, what any great sportsman does at a ball game. He looks at the part where he wants to aim, and he points himself there and picks up a line of aim, which really is an estimate. And the more correct he can be in that estimate, so the success becomes greater. So there you see. Now, the hard and fast rule is, and here's the proof without going into too many details, that if you take a half ball aim, it is in fact a quarter ball contact. So what we're saying is that the contact is half the aim. Now, this is why you don't want to get confused and think everything you do is where you hit the object ball. It isn't. Mentally, you pick up a line of aim, and if you play that line of aim and get the concentration on that line of aim, then your contact will be automatic, but it will only be half of the expression that you use in terms of half ball, quarter ball. I mean, a quarter ball aim is an eighth contact. There we are. That is a three-quarter ball, and that is a half ball. And to take it to, well, I was going to say a silly conclusion, but it is in fact true that if you hit that ball, a full ball, there it is. What are you hitting? Half the ball. Simple, isn't it? Now, that's not going to make you a champion, but it's going to give you an understanding of just what the game is about. And I haven't met anybody in this world, whether he's a watchmaker, a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, who by his knowledge and understanding of his trade and his business hasn't been a better person for it. And that's what it's all about. If you understand the details of the game, which are very, very interesting to understand, you then can practice and you can tell the improvement is coming, and if the improvement isn't coming, you know what to search for, because the balls will tell you what you're doing wrong. So there we are. Now, having said all that, I must just throw this in, because I had to smile quite a few years ago now, probably a dozen years ago or so, and the referees, God bless them, and I'm only having a bit of light-hearted fun with them now, but they came on and they were very proud. They'd got this new little invention, this thing will, you know, will you mark the ball please, or will you clean the cue ball? And they come in and there we are, pick the ball up, give it a clean, put it back, take it away, bonk. Lovely. Well, there it is, 85 years old. They become a little more sophisticated, giving them a bigger base, but that's it. And that's a little piece of ebony. And that is exactly 1 1/32 inches, which is half the width or depth of the cue ball. So there we are, look. Spot. There we are. There's half the ball. So there, well, that's a little bit of interest. Let's hope you can make use of it sometime. Now, just before we finish, I'd like to just explain to you, because we now have a visual aid, the drag that we were talking about. Now, if you put drag on, you actually address the cue ball very low as you can, and when you strike it with a crisp strike, that ball will make an action of wanting to turn, but it will skid according to the power you put in the shot. It will skid forward, and then the forward rotation will take up, and it will run through on its axis like that. But the skid that has happened has actually allowed some of the power to go out of the shot. So if you played to hit those two balls I was on about here, you would hit it a little crisper than I did, and by the time it got there, there would be a percentage of the power taken from the shot, and then it would pick up the forward rotation and continue rolling through, so that you've played with a little more freedom in the arm, you know, and this is really what it's all about. So very quickly now, just let me strike this ball, and just to illustrate the point, I will put the rings square onto me. So now, if you watch, and I'll give it a hard whack at first just to illustrate the point, and you will see that from here to here you will see the changeover of the skid and picking up the rotation. A nice crisp shot. Now, I don't know if you could see that. Let's play it once more. There we are. So here we are now. Not too hard. Now there you saw the ball skid from there to there and lose a little bit of the power in the shot and roll nicely up the table, just at a pace that would overcome the net. And I hope that you'll find that useful. If it's only once, it's worthwhile. Well, there you are. That's the short Jenny. And of course, one might say, well, they are difficult shots. They're not that difficult, but the point is, of course, that if you're playing short jennies and long jennies for that matter, it means really that you're getting into trouble when you shouldn't be. So somewhere you want to look to the previous shots that have got you into that bad position. So I'll just play one more short jenny, just to let you have a good look at it. And one can assume there that I've played to bring the red down to the middle pocket. I've overhit it or come too far, so I've got to bring it back into play there. So of course it's brought me nicely back into play. So there we are, that's the short jenny. Well, there you are, that's the long jenny, and the name itself explains, doesn't it? We just played the short jenny, which was from just below the centre pocket. This time the long jenny, and again, if you play this and you find you have to keep playing them, you're getting into trouble. The less you have to play these shots, the better. I'll play one more, and the object here really is to see a nice angle to the pocket and make sure that you take the red thin enough to avoid a kiss back off the cushion as you go past, and play with pocket side, which in this case is right hand side, and strike just below centre there. There you are, it's like falling off a log, isn't it? So there we are, short jenny, long jenny. The less you play them, the better. These are just 2 or 3 shots I want to play, including the one that I've just played, which is the perfect straight one between the 2 corner pockets, to ensure that it's pretty obvious with perfect cueing you get both balls in the pocket. Into the side either way, you may get the pot, but you lose position. So it's all about perfect cueing. So I would like to say, with fear of boring you to death, try and play in these shots the cue action and not the result of the shot. Now if you do that, you will then begin to appreciate the importance of cueing. Now this one is a half ball pot off the pyramid spot, And the cue ball is placed 22 inches from the centre spot of the table in the D. And if you point your cue through the centre of the cue ball and through to the edge of the red, really splitting your cue on the edge of that red, and if you can execute that action there, you will find the red will go in the pocket. Now, this shot here is a half ball in off the red into the left-hand corner pocket off the pyramid spot. Again, if you play this perfectly, you'll find that the red ball will come off the top cushion, the side cushion, and begin to run into the playable area of the table around here. You won't find the red ball slipping down the side here where you can be in danger. So now I'll try and take this, and this ball here is, incidentally, is 2.5 inches from the corner of the D. And that is a perfect half ball into the left-hand corner. Now, in doing this, I've placed the white ball on the side cushion where the red should strike, and that is opposite the pyramid spot. So from the result of that red ball, you will know whether you've struck the object ball correctly. So here we go. Perfect half ball through centre of white, edge of red.
Two. Four. Six. Nine. 11. 14. 16. 19. 21. 24. 27. 29. 32, 35, 37, 40, 42, 45, 48, 50, 53, 56, 58, 61, 63, 66, 68, 71, 74, 76, 79, 81, 84, 86, 89, 91, 94, 96, 99, 100, 102. $104. $107. $109. $112. $114. $117. $119. $122. $124. $127. $129. $132. $134. $137. $139. $142. $144. $147. $149.
That's probably as good a time to stop as any. There's about 150 odd round this spot. Now, again, there you see, if you can master this sort of game, here's the time when you would think, well, I've had a nice view at the spot. Don't put temptation into your path too much. Simple pot red, cross loser, 369, and if you're able and confident about your red ball play, a few reds up and down, then come back again with a cannon or a pot red into the centre pocket, and away you go again. And that is the art, in my opinion, and of people far better than me in the old days, who considered that was the way to play, to have this little holiday that Tom Newman used to talk about. And believe me, that is the way to maintain the concentration that is demanded at this game, particularly today when you've only got 150 up to play, and it doesn't give you much opportunity, or any opportunity, of making a mistake, because you get punished severely and the game is over. So there we are, nicely in play, all set to go, a little bit of red ball. Well, there we are, that's the end of operations. It's been very enjoyable, and as we come to a close, I thought I'd like to show you just the faces of some of the really great billiard players of all time, and I'm honoured to say that I've had a privilege of playing with most of them and learning from them indeed. And it has been a very enjoyable time, and I hope somebody will get some benefit from what we've done, and who knows, maybe some player in the future may surpass these great players. And there you see, first of all, the great John Roberts, who was the pioneer of billiards as we know it today. A truly wonderful player, a dashing, daring type of player. And there you see Willie Smith playing probably the greatest scorer there's ever been, probably ever will be, the wonderful Walter Lindrum, the Australian. And I had the pleasure of playing and picking the balls out for him and learning just the odd tip or two. And I had the honour of playing Clark McConaughey, the New Zealand player, and I'm proud to say that I won. I think he was a little past his best, but I can assure you he was quite a player. And he's playing, of course, the great Walter. And there's probably one of the most attractive players of all in Claude Faulkner, a man who never really hit the highlights, but was the most beautiful player to watch. Very artistic, very dapper little man, truly a great player. And of course, there you see Horace Lindrum, who was nearer my age, if you like. He was a bit senior to me, but a very, very fine player, and we had lots of happy hours, weeks and months together playing, and I learned quite a lot from him as well. And of course the great Joe Davis. There is talk and chatter that he was great, if not greater than Walter, but without question he was the greatest snooker player, due to the fact that his skill at billiards surpasses anything that any modern snooker player has ever got anywhere near achieving, and that is what gives him the superiority. A truly wonderful player. And having said all those nice things about all the players, for me, my idol, the great Tom Newman, who was the champion before Joe Davis, a very, very nice gentleman indeed, a very great specialist in top of the table, had a beautiful touch, and taught me a great deal. In fact, we started when I was about 6 years of age. And, well, lo and behold, who do you think that young fellow is? Well, that's yours truly. Well, there it is. All I can say is, good billiards, enjoy it. Always remember you must enjoy it. And who knows, let's hope I see some of you around in the near future. I'm not going for good just yet, I can assure you. Happy billiards.